Our next recipient began his interactions with MCVRC, then called the Stephanie Roper Committee. That's Jerry Evans, who served as Mike Miller's chief legislative aide. Everything we accomplished for many years was shepherded through the wise counsel and diligence of Jerry in that capacity. It's no exaggeration to say that much of our success in Annapolis hinged on the assistance of Jerry. In 1988, we were pushing for a Maryland constitutional amendment for crime victims' rights and making little progress in Annapolis. Jerry was by then a top private lobbyist in Annapolis and volunteered. I'm not sure that I have that date right. Maybe it was right around that time, but Jerry volunteered to help secure the constitutional amendment. With his assistance and the cooperative efforts of other organizations, it took years to break through the resistance of the opposition in the Maryland legislature. His efforts would have cost tens of thousands of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to a paying client. The man was representing, at the time, the Washington Redskins, Maryland's version of the American Medical Association, other massive corporations, but he treated us as if we were his most important client. Without Jerry's help, passing the Maryland constitutional amendment would have taken more effort and time and included much frustration for those involved. Let me draw your attention to a later story. In 2021, we were blindsided, as were victims groups across the nation, by a grant budget cut from those guys down on Capitol Hill. Now, bear in mind that Glenn Ivey was not yet there, so okay, it's not. We were told essentially that our budget, within 3 days of the start of the financial year, we were told that our budget would be cut 20%. I reached out to Jerry Evans, and within 3 days, he had arranged a face-to-face meeting with Governor Hogan, and the governor instantly committed to finding funds to correct the last-minute cuts. And he followed through with that commitment, not just for us, but for every victims organization in the state. Jerry saved us in 2021 from severe financial distress. Jerry still provides us with valuable and critical lobbying and intelligence efforts in Annapolis. Jerry serves on the board of Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center, where he supports our mission and closely monitors legislation in Annapolis that aligns with our goals. His contribution behind the scenes illustrates his commitment to crime victims. I am so proud to present my dear friend our highest award, the Roberta Roper Lifetime Achievement Award. Come on up, Jerry.
Thank you.
I gotta do this before. I just have to mention that I haven't seen my dear friend Kathy in probably 30 years. Kathy and I, when I was skinny, we were prosecutors together in little cubicles down in the basement of the courthouse in Upper Marlboro. And Haley, I had to learn all about pregnancy because of you.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I'm glad you saved the best to last, obviously, right? Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Chair, the Council Chair, Sheriff, Congressman, Sean and Joy, thank you for your efforts. I want to thank Kurt and the board for giving me this honor. Although it's a wonderful award, the Center bestowed upon me an even greater honor by mistakenly switching my resume for Congressman Ivey in one of the earlier drafts. It was very nice to suddenly be a congressman, elected state's attorney, Public Service Commission chair, and United States attorney, among other titles. So it lasted very briefly until Haley, my boss, read it and said, "Dad, we have to correct this." I always knew I should have gone to Harvard and Princeton instead of Maryland and U of B, which is where I went. But it was great to see it in black and white, if not just for a moment. But like Glenn, my family is the inspiration of my life. And I would have needed many more tables to bring my whole family here tonight, but we have 5 children and their respective spouses, and 9 grandchildren would have been quite a crew. But we do have 3 of my daughters, my lovely wife of 44 years, my superstar son-in-laws, Ricky and Johnny, so it's great. My loving wife of 44 years, Kathleen, as Kurt alluded to, is our North Star. As a prosecutor for decades in Prince George's County and then in Anne Arundel County, she lived the victim's plight while seeking justice, pursuing the most dangerous drug dealers and killers, while at the same time always keeping the victims of crime front and center in her mind. My first exposure to the plight of crime victims was working for Mike Miller, as Kurt said, in the late 1970s. May God rest his soul. It was there, while working for Mike, that Stephanie was savagely murdered. Remember, this happened in our legislative district, our home, and Mike Miller took it personally. Mike became a victims' rights pioneer. I worked with Mike in the General Assembly year after year to bring equity and fairness to our criminal justice system. As you all know, we've had many setbacks. But for those of you that knew Mike, there was no retreat and no surrender. His work culminated in the Maryland Victims' Rights Constitutional Amendment, and lately, Kurt tells me we need to adjust that, the national model, and I look forward to helping in that fight. Throughout our struggle, I had the privilege of working with Roberta Roper. We were members of the same parish in Prince George's County, Holy Rosary. I would see her at Mass every Sunday. Well, let me correct that. I saw her Sunday when I was at Mass, although I'm quite sure she was there every Sunday. I would look in amazement at her strength, poise, and emotional stature. I wondered how anyone could maintain their resilience and their faith under those trying circumstances. I found myself wondering about my own. I questioned what depth my own commitment would be in the face of what Roberta lived every day. How would I even be able to put one foot in front of the other after such an unspeakable tragedy, much less take on the gut-wrenching battle of this epic measure to change the law relative to victims' rights? I was not sure I could measure up. Believe it or not, for years I taught Sunday school. I know you're thinking, well, that explains the drop-off in Catholics in Prince George's County. But without getting too preachy, our faith believes in God's plan. Our faith teaches that out of pain and misery and dejection and strife comes a path. The Bible says, although the Lord gives you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, your eyes shall see your teacher, and your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk it. Roberta has seen the way, she's walked the walk, and we're all lucky to be able to follow her for the great good of the crime victims of Maryland. When Kurt asked me to advocate for the center in its legislative battles in Annapolis, I was honored, of course, to accept. For those of you who know Kurt, you appreciate he cannot be matched in either intellect, energy, or persistence. But I will try to keep up with him. Again, to Roberta, Kurt, and the board, thank you for this great honor. I hope to earn it in my continual service.